Imagine paying top dollar for elite legal protection only to have your lawyers sell you out when things go south. Well, that's exactly what happened in the Panama Papers. Celebrities such as Lionel Messi, Jackie Chan, even the devil himself, David Cameron, they all relied on their lawyers to have their backs. But the law firm behind the scandal was not looking out for their clients. They were busy selling offshores. And when the heat came, they quickly folded, cooperated with authorities, and left their clients to fend for themselves. When push comes to shove, your lawyer does not work for you. They work for the system. And in the next few minutes, I'll break down why your lawyer will usually not give you tailor-made advice, where this problem comes from, and most importantly, what you can do about it in order to protect yourself and your assets. Let's get into it. What's the root of the problem? Education. It all boils down to the fact that law school does not train lawyers to think critically or to think outside of the box. They are trained to spit out answers based on what the teacher expects from them. TV shows like Suits or movies like A Few Good Men, they make it seem like lawyers are these slick Harvey Specter types who come up with brilliant solutions for their clients. In reality, maybe 5% of lawyers, the top dollar ones, are actually like that. The rest, they are literally chat GPTs. Now, how can I claim all of this so confidently? Because I experienced it firsthand. A few years ago, I graduated from law school in Paris, having studied both French and common law. And here's what law school teaches you, and universities in general. They train their students to be extremely dogmatic. Exams are not about creative thinking. There's only one right answer, one correct interpretation, even though teachers will say otherwise. In fact, our professors forced us to memorize entire passages from the civil code books, which are very common in civil law countries. And guess what? All of this can be found online. In fact, ChatGPT will know and spit out all of these laws better than any lawyer you'll ever find. So why this obsession with memorization? Because it conditions them to follow the system. You get your law degree, your master's, you pass the bar, and finally you're licensed. A license, though, that can be taken away at any given moment. You dare to get too creative with solutions to help your clients reduce their taxes? State can revoke your license. And that license is tied to a specific jurisdiction, forcing lawyers to focus on one strict national boundary. And the same thing applies to accountants. Don't you dare give any offshore solutions as advice unless you're actually licensed there. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that accountants are even more embedded in the system because they do not work for you, they work for the state. Their job is to certify that you, Mr. Tax Cattle, have paid your fair share to the government. And here's the kicker. While studying law, I actually worked for Francis Spinaire, who was the former French president's lawyer, for a political campaign. And you know what separated him from all the other lawyers? Is precisely that he didn't follow the rules. That's what made him so valuable. That's why a sociopathic, corrupt fool like Chirac did not face the same consequences as another kleptocrat, Sarkozy. And that's also a reason why Spinaire to this day is very well connected, very well paid, and rewarded with high government positions. Anyway, screw the politicians. The real danger isn't just that lawyers work for the system. It's that people blindly trust them without using their own judgment. There's a legal principle that we were taught in law school, which is ignorance of the law excuses no one. And a lot of people, they falsely assume that because they've consulted with an authoritative figure, that all of a sudden it's going to hold up in court. Guess what? It doesn't. Just like we saw licensed doctors handing out poison a few years ago, lawyers make terrible decisions too. Take Wesley Snipes' case. He gambled with his life and spent 3 years in federal prison because his lawyers told him that he didn't have to pay taxes in the United States. That's a criminal offense against the best funded tax collectors in the entire world. He didn't even consider his odds of winning. I mean, he's a global celebrity, a Hollywood star. All eyes are on him, and he still thought it was a good idea. And then when in court, his defense, My lawyers told me it was fine. Blame my lawyers. And the US government disagreed, and he spent time in jail. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide who and what actually makes sense. And a few lawyers and professionals, some YouTubers, they get mad at my videos because I don't use official terms. That's the whole point. We break down legalese into simple, plain language so that you can decide whether what's being said actually holds up. What do lawyers actually do? Well, administrative procedures. They know the system, how to correctly craft legal documents, where to send them, the next steps in legal proceedings, the list of required paperwork. Through experience, most lawyers know their jurisdiction's procedures and book advice in and out. And the same thing goes for accountants, which is a good thing. But when it comes to tailor-made solutions, by definition, only providing advice from one country isn't tailor-made. Only providing advice from a legal standpoint is not tailor-made either, because law does not exist in isolation. It works with accounting, with finances, insurance brokers, investments, a whole ecosystem. And that's why the rich, they don't rely on one professional. They build teams, family offices, because all of a sudden, the lawyer, they talk to the accountants. And the accountants get the perspective of the insurance broker, who works with the wealth manager, the investment advisors. And they all work in unison with one goal in mind. And that is to increase their clients' wealth and protect their assets. I know, your instinctive reaction. It's, this doesn't apply to me. Family offices, they cost millions per year to maintain. But here's the thing. You don't actually have to splurge on a family office. You just have to get better at spotting real talent from the robots. So the next time that you enter a law office, instead of just asking, what do you recommend? Flip the script. Say something extreme, such as, I don't want to pay taxes. How could I theoretically do it? And then watch their reaction. If they just scoff and laugh at you, they're book smart. They follow the rules, but don't think beyond it. If they come up with some magical loophole that all of a sudden solves all of your tax issues, it's probably too good to be true. But real professionals, they first start with questions, such as, where's your country of tax residency? How many citizenships do you own? Where are your businesses located? How liquid are you? Etc., etc. And that's how you spot real expertise. They may not have the perfect solution. They may be expensive. It'll cost an arm and a leg. But at least you know that they're thinking pragmatically and not dogmatically. And by the way, when it comes to law and accounting, those are inseparable. So at the very least, your lawyer should have a partner with an accountant so that you can maximize on those deductions and write-offs. Of course, as your wealth increases, you also want to expand your team so that they spend more time on your specific case. But for now, just by using your common sense and asking the right questions, you can avoid entirely the paper pushers who are just trying to sell you a useless service. That's it for today's presentation, guys. If you enjoy this type of content, as always, share it with a friend, comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. I made a previous video about the right questions to ask your offshore lawyer in order to not get scammed or make mistakes. You can check it out over there, but it perfectly ties in with this presentation. I'll be seeing you in a future video, and until then, bye-bye.